And if I notice that my old Mac is going to not like recording and on Zoom and using Blender, then I'll just have to brace myself and get into the Windows computer. Let's see how this goes. Right, so we don't need to share sound from the computer. And I already have Blender open, but let's just start a new file here. All right, so the basic way that Blender looks like with its basic cube is a bit boring looking, but it has its uses. What I often like to do for watching purposes is that I like to put the shading on. So because here on the right hand side, upper right hand corner, there are these different shading options. There's the render preview and the wireframe preview. So I usually toggle between these, and sometimes I'm a little bit lazy to actually go with my cursor on the right hand side. So I just click Z on the keyboard like this, and then I get the rendering options directly. So Z on the keyboard. And as you can see, there's also that, I'm guessing that if you click Z and then 8, then you get directly into the rendered view. So rendered view means that it shows you the view as closely as it would look like in actual rendering, depending on which rendering engine you have on. Like right now, it's the default one, which is Eevee. Then there's another engine called Cycles, which is slower but more accurate in ways. Eevee is the faster one. But anyway, by clicking Z, I can toggle quickly through these different options. Sometimes it's good to have the material previews. Sometimes specifically if you have a big scene, and then it might be better to have this solid rendering. So right now you don't see much difference between the rendered view and the solid, but let's make some difference happen. For instance, if you think that, like me, that this gray background is a bit boring to watch, then you can go to the world settings over here. There's the world properties, like these are properties of different things. So the world is the little icon looking like a world or looking like Earth. So here you can, for instance, change the color of the world to something else than gray by just clicking there. So now it's this bluish or dark bluish background. There are also ways of putting a 360 or HDRI image in the background of your world. And we're going to look at that at some point, how to do that. There are other things here, as you can see, like the strength and sun position, volume, but we're not going to go there right now. So I can also put the strength as a background as less or more. That's the setting 1. And yeah, as you are trying out this, how to navigate here, then, well, you can try out how to zoom in and out, what happens if you use your middle mouse button, what to do with your right mouse button, and so on. So as for myself, I have put settings so that I can like pan to the right and left by clicking on Shift. But on a Windows PC, it's slightly different. I can also set that here in the Preferences menu. I think in the Windows version of Blender, preferences are a little bit in a different place, where they under File. No, I don't remember. Or maybe they are both in the same place. Blender is very much similar in both the Mac and Windows environments. Haven't used it on Linux. Okay, there's the interface. And okay. Navigation, yes, that's what I was looking for. So these are my settings for the navigation. There's the key map. So traditionally, Blender selecting was with the right mouse button. Right now, so if you're one of the old Blender users, you might want to have it like that way, but in the newest versions of Blender, the selecting is on the, by default, on the left mouse button. Also, you can change when what happens when you press on the spacebar. But now I've set it on play, so I could also put tools there. Guessing. And here the middle mouse action is set on orbit. And then there's the Alt middle mouse drag, what happens. Else. We're going to go here into the preferences many times. For instance, when we want to add add-ons or put them in action. I'm looking if there are some things that I'd like to point out to you in the add-ons. Maybe the add mesh extra objects will be important to you later on. We're not going to make those trees yet, but when we are going to make them, then this sapling tree generator is good to have. We're going to, yeah, some of these are already on by default. If you don't have the FBX format as import-export, then you should click it on. Also, it's good to have the DXF format, import-export. And the SVG, if you want to import any vector graphics into Blender. And then there's the OBJ. Okay, I don't think other add-ons are that important. Well, the node wrangler, yes, that's good to have. Yeah. Otherwise, yes, in UV, I've got Magic UV on. And previously you had to always click save and load before the preferences were like active, but nowadays they are like automatically active. You don't need to click on save and load. So if you're a Maya user, then you might like to go into the interface and no, it wasn't here. I think it was on the viewport. User interface. Yeah. Okay. Can't find it now, but it doesn't matter. It's just how the how a Blender would looks like with you. Okay, that's it for now for the preferences. Okay, what elements do we have here? We have the like basic cube. We also have the basic camera. And you can see the camera view by if you have like a numpad on your computer, then it's 0 that you can press. You can also go here to viewport and click here camera view. There's numpad 0, and you can see also how you can get the like top, bottom, front and back views. So this is how it looks like right now from the camera point of view. And it's quite easy to get out of it. And by the way, if you have questions, then it's good to voice them again. So what is this? This is a light. And now there is only one light in the scene. And let's see what kind of light it is. Where's the light properties? Over there. So it's a point light, as you can see. I could change it into the sun, which is very bright, or change it into a spotlight, which gives me more control over the direction, or I could change it into an area light, which also has its merits. So maybe I'll leave it as an area light, and then I could just duplicate it. So how to duplicate stuff on Blender? You click on Shift and D. And then I click on Enter once, because I don't want to move it automatically after I have duplicated it. I want now it's in the exact same position as the previous one. Also, I can see here that it's in this scene collection. Collections are a little bit like layers. So how to move this? So there are a couple of options of moving. Here's the transform tool that I can use, or there's the move tool, and you can see that the shortcut is clicking G on the keyboard, for instance, for moving things. So this is how it looks like. I have to say I used to use just a keyboard commands for moving and transforming stuff, like rotate is R. Then I found this tool, and now I'm using basically almost only this. But for instance, let's say I want to move this only in the y-axis, in the green axis, then I could, well, let's move it in the x-axis, by the way. Then I could just click on G and X. First G, then X. And now it's giving me just the x-axis and nothing else.
You can also drag it into a direction and press middle mouse button, and it locks onto the axis you drag it to.
Mm-hmm. Good. Thanks for clarifying. Here you can see how people have different ways of using Blender, and you have to find your own way, in a way, like what works for you. In the best way. So, as I said, I used to use a lot of the keyboard commands. Then, like lately, I've become lazy, and I just use this one, this transform tool. So you'll see me using this a lot. Also, it's clear when I'm having a class that people can see directly what I'm doing, or more directly at least. So I'm not going to make a 3-point lighting right now, but kind of lazy 2-point lighting. Maybe I'll change the color here for this other light a little bit, maybe a bit of yellowish or orange tone.
Sorry, I can't find the lights for some reason. For me, there is it shows me like a camera option.
Okay, can you see the light here in your scene collection? Just click on.
Yeah. Oh,
click on the lights, and then
yeah. Nice, thank you.
They look a little bit like, well, they can be. They are very inconspicuous, let's say. Sometimes they are not so easy to find. But yeah, if you can't find your lights, then just go to the view window and see where they are. So what if I want to create new stuff here? If I don't want to duplicate things, and how do I then get rid of stuff? Well, there's of course the add menu, and as you can see, the shortcut is Shift and A, and I use that shortcut all the time. So if you can just Shift and A, and then you get this add menu, and there are a lot of stuff there. Very often what I use is adding a mesh. Sometimes I also add a curve. And there are also empty objects that we can create, just like in, for instance, After Effects. Especially when we animate, we're going to use empty objects, but this is not the course for that. Here's also the different lights that you can create. Also, you can create something called force fields. We won't go there right now. Anyway, interesting here that there's the force field and speaker. The Blender used to be a game engine before it became something else. And now there are the rests of the game engine there that people are using for, again, other things. But one of the render engines used to be like the game engine. It's not there anymore. But anyway, if I wanted to create a new object, let's say a UV sphere, for instance, or maybe a cylinder. Yeah, maybe I'm going to use the cylinder later on, so I'll just create it here. Then there it is. Also, yeah, it's right on top of the cube. Also here on the left-hand side, once I have created a new thing, there's the, I can already change what it looks like. I can change its radius. So now you can see the cylinder, actually. Also I can change how many vertices there are, or how smooth it is and its surface. Does it have a filled top and bottom? There's and what kind of fill it is, and what its location is. I can of course change these later on as well. But anyway, now I can change its place. And over here, I can now look at the object properties. This is one place to change its looks and its place. Where else can I do it? By, for instance, clicking N on the keyboard. This is one place to getting the transform options. And other things as well. So N, did you get that? You can also take it away by clicking N. Okay, also here in the scene collection, I can hide or show it in the viewport. I don't need it right now, so I will hide it. But the image of the camera means that it will still be rendered in the scene. Or I could have put it into another scene collection altogether. So now it won't be even rendered. So like I said earlier, scene collections are a bit like layers. And well, Blender also has something called layers, but I don't recommend using them as you would use like a layer in Photoshop, for instance. So I'd rather create a new collection, because that, so again, these are maybe not like layers in Photoshop, but maybe more like layers in a vector program like Illustrator, so that you can have several objects inside one collection. And you can, of course, parent these objects to each other so that one object will follow everything like another object. Right. Okay, so by the way, if I wanted to get rid of this cylinder, if I didn't want it here at all, so then I would have to click on it and then click X in order to delete it. So X on the keyboard means deleting stuff. X. So now it's asking me if I want to delete it. Yeah. So by clicking Control or Command Z, I can bring it back. Okay, but right now I'm just making it invisible and not doing anything else about it. Okay, maybe we should go into editing mode and also vertices, what they are. By the way, you might have noticed that there are several workspaces over here, and like the layout is where we usually start with. Then there's the modeling workspace, the sculpting one we're going to try out on Thursday. Also, we will get into the UV editing very soon, but not today, and also to the texture paint. So then there's the shading workspace, which we are going to try out today already. We won't be using the animation workspace for a couple of weeks. Of course, there's the rendering, compositing. By the way, you can actually like make videos here. You can like edit them and put audio into them and stuff. So it's a bit rudimentary, but you can do it in Blender. Then there's the geometry nodes, which I personally don't use much. Maybe I should start using them more, but yeah, that's something we're probably not going to do much during this course. But people who use them say that they are very interesting. Okay. So the workspaces that I use a lot are the object mode and the edit mode. So basically modeling is the edit mode, but you can also jump around them by just clicking on the tab button on your keyboard, like clicking tab. First I need to select an object, of course, then I click tab, and then it goes directly into the edit mode or the modeling. So edit mode, you can see it here. So then I click tab again and I go back to the object mode. So this is one of the keyboard commands that is very practical. Okay, for instance, if you're using Maya, for instance, which is really important 3D modeling program and also quite expensive, you don't have a separate like object and edit mode, but you learn that quickly. Like, I'd say once you know Blender, it's also easy to learn Maya. In many workplaces, for instance, in animation companies, also games companies, they want people to know how to use Maya. But Blender is becoming also more and more an industry standard. But if you want to try out Maya, I think there is like a 1 or 2 year free testing period for a student. And then we do have that in the Mediapolis, or in normal circumstances, we would have it. Let's say that. Okay, back to what can be done in edit mode. I'm going to zoom in a little bit to my cube. And now you can see that it's made of these little points, which are called vertices. And here you have the vertex select. It's one vertex and several vertices. That's how it goes. And the vertex count of an object is quite important sometimes. Also the count of the edges and faces. So there are three different selection modes. One for just the vertices. And by the way, selecting things is quite an art on its own in Blender. So let's do the really simple selecting by clicking Shift. Now I can select both of these vertices, and for instance with the transform tool I can just change the way this looks like. And so let's make it back. Or if selecting these vertices is a bit too tedious, then there's edge select. So I could have just selected with edge select the whole edge at once. Like this, or this. What I want to do with this cube, by the way, I want to make it into a character, like a humanoid character at some point. And I was also talking about those stones. Those I need for this henge, and I will need a terrain. So these are my goals. But before we get into the actual modeling, I should tell you what faces are. So if I select a face here, you can see that, well, this is a face. And because there are 4 corners to this face, it's called a quad. Then sometimes you have like sculpting programs which are making automatically faces that are tris, which are like triangles. They have 3 edges, and then there's a lot of like skills needed for skills and artificial intelligence needed to change those tris into quads, because quads are in general better for animating characters and deforming them. Anyway, so now that I have selected one face, I can just move that as a whole like this. Or I can also do some basic editing in the object mode to this object. Like I can change I can resize it a little bit. Yeah, just thinking about the torso of my character, because this cube is going to be the torso in the end. If I go back to the edit mode, I can also use the X for deleting faces or edges or vertices. Like if I have this face selected, for instance, I can click X, and now it's asking me what I want to delete. So I'll delete this one. usually it's not a good idea to delete a lot of like faces and then again to make them whole, because that will mess up with your topology, and topology is important enough that I already put a link to an article about topology into the Moodle. And we're going to talk about topology a lot. So basically, it's about if the vertex structure of your model, if it's clean or not clean. And it's especially when you're starting out with 3D, it's easy to mess up your topology. And skilled people in 3D, you can notice that they don't mess up the topologies, or that they know how to keep it clean. Okay, I'll just close this up again. What I could have done also, if I get holes like this, what I could do is actually select all of these faces here, and then click F to fill it. Okay, and I did a mistake. Let's go back to here, and now I have to see that I'm selecting actually these 4 edges in order to fill this. Okay, F. Now it's filled again. There we go. Okay, questions so far? We've done pretty basic stuff here. Okay, in order to demonstrate a little bit more about how to select stuff, and also how to create more faces in your object, I'll go away from the object mode, and I will now create the terrain. Well, that's going to be the terrain. So I'll go a little bit further away, and maybe I'll just move this item a little bit upwards. And then I'll click away so that nothing is selected. By the way, with clicking A on your keyboard, you can select everything. And then again, you can deselect by clicking away. It used to be different in Blender, but now it's this way. Anyway, I was going to create an object for the terrain. So I'm going to make just a plane. And this one is pretty small. So I'm going to make it bigger over here. So I think 10 was the maximum number that I can scroll up. No, I can scroll it further, but I can just click here and make it, let's say 70. Still a bit small. Let's make it 90. Okay, and the location suits me fine. I'll make it 100. And if you miss this one and you click somewhere else and you don't have the first editing options, then you can always go to the transform options here, or transform it from over here. So there are many ways of doing it. Oh, by the way, before I go further, I think I'll give some basic colors to each of these objects. So basically, I'll go to these, the material properties. And there is no material here yet, so I'll need to click new. This is just for my own sake that I like to look at things in different colors when they are in the render view. So here, base color. So I'll make it somehow reddish. Okay, and I'll give the cube or my future character also some color. Let's make it bluish. So that's it for now. And now I go back to the gray view. Okay, back to my plane, my terrain. So here it's called plane, by the way. And I can, of course, change the names of the objects by double clicking on them, and I'll say this is my terrain. And I'll change the name of my cube into character. It's not much of a character yet, but will be, I hope. Okay, and back to the terrain and into edit mode. And what I need is, what I want to do with the terrain, I want to make it rise and fall. And what I need is more details to it, more geometry. I need to create more vertices. And there are many ways of doing that. And what I'm going to do is, okay, by the way, first of all, I'm going to go up, 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 and see it all. God's point of view. If there is a God, then it's me for this world. And then here on the edge, I can find something called subdivide. And I'm going to do true subdivision now. So I'm going to actually create more actual geometry. There's also virtual geometry that we can create so that an object just looks subdivided, but it isn't. And they are called modifiers. We'll get to them today. So subdivide. And now what I need is the subdivision options here. So I want to say how many cuts there will be in the subdivision. So the more I raise this, the more cuts it makes. So now it's creating geometry. And scrolling goes to 10, but I can make it bigger. Let's try 15. Okay, not bad. So it could be even more, but I don't want to have too much of it. Let's try 20. Okay, yeah, why not? Then other things that I could do here, I could already raise my ground a little bit by clicking on the fractal. And I have to be careful with the fractal so that it doesn't go like this. So I just want to make it a little bit fractal. Also, I can change the smoothness, so it looks smoother in general. I'll use that smoothness later on as well. When I'm making the stones. And then I can change the random seeds a little bit so that the fractals go a little bit differently. So this is basically just math. But the program is doing all the computing for me, which is how I prefer it. Did you know that computer, the word computer used to be the word for a profession? It was a woman's profession in the 19th century, that you could be, if you were like talented in maths and you were a woman, then you could become a computer. So you were basically making computing. Anyway, back to my terrain. It's a little bit lame still. What I want to do is I want to raise parts of it and lower some other parts, which means that I need to, right now everything is selected. What I want to do is select just some parts of it. And if I would start clicking on the face selection like this, it would take like forever, even with shift on. So, oh, by the way, I can, did you know that with clicking shift, it's possible to have all the selection modes on at once. Sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't. Anyway, back to selecting these things. What I could do is I can actually paint select things by clicking C on the keyboard. Now, what I'm getting is this selection paintbrush, which by clicking on the middle mouse button, I can, well, I'm not using the mouse, but I'm doing it with my let's see. Anyway, I'm emulating the middle mouse button. Anyway, with the middle mouse button, you can change the size of this, like how big the selection it is. And you can get out of this C selection mode by clicking enter. What I want to do now is select things here at the edges of, and then raise those. So I get away from it by clicking enter. And now I can again look at what I have selected. There are other ways of selecting things, such as here under the select menu. What you can find here is select random, for instance, or checker select. Then we have also lasso selection, and what we used was like the basic box selection too. So by clicking C, you get this, what I call like brush select, because it's kind of like a brush. So now that I have selected these areas, I can use this to just raise them. However, if I raise them like this, it looks a little bit clunky. So I want it to be smoother. And how do I do that? Well, here's another little thing called proportional editing, which you have to be really careful to click off once you have used it. You can also find proportional editing in Maya, by the way, because it's kind of an important thing in 3D, this proportional editing. So if I click this on, well, here I can also change the way the editing goes, but basically what I can now do is raise it so that it goes smoother to the other places. So now I'm using the keyboard command G and Z, so that G is for moving things and Z is in the Z axis. See? And now it's raising it in a more smooth way. Okay, and now I need to have a break, or should we already have our okay, stop sharing.